Здравейте, вие сте Свръхчовекът с Георги Ненов, подкастът, който всеки вторник ви разказва истории, които вдъхновяват. Моят гост днес е Мориц Цимерман. Той е Chief of Staff в агенцията Диана, част от НАТО. Повече за него и неговата история ще чуем след малко на английски език, а преди това искам да благодаря на партньорите на подкаста, благодарение на които и този епизод достига до вас. Преминаването на Свръхчовекът с Георги Ненов към видео нямаше да бъде възможно без подкрепата на Dynaphos. Затова с Монката искрено ги препоръчваме като място, на което можеш да намериш продукти и решения за фото, видео, бродкаст и кинооборудване, както за любители, така и за професионалисти. От създаването си през 2003 година екипът на Dynaphos има една основна ценност – да работи за клиентите и за общността. В техния шоурум или по телефона ще получиш качествена консултация за това как лесно и изгодно да оборудваш твоето студио. Разбери повече на dynaphos.bg. Използвай промокод SUPERHUMAN21, за да получиш свръхчовешка отстъпка. Moritz, здравей. Moritz, hello. Welcome to the Superhuman podcast. How I like to translate it literally in English. It should be the Superhuman with Georgi Nenov podcast, but it's too complicated.
That's fine. No worries. I was really impressed by your introduction. It's my first time in Bulgaria, my first 24 hours here. I'm loving it, I have to say. Sofia is a great city. I tried to learn a little bit of Bulgarian, but...
What did you learn? I'm
Merci.
not going... Merci is good enough. Yeah, it's international word. People are going to be understanding when you say merci.
It's fair enough.
Fair enough.
It feels very French when I say it, but it's okay.
It's okay. We have a lot of words that came from France, from Turkey, from all over the place, because we are on this geographical sweet spot, like crossroad between the East and the West. So, a brief intro. Katya Vasileva, my good friend from Bulgarian National Radio, she's helping the Gate Foundation here, the Gate Institute in Bulgaria, and she said, you know, Moritz is coming from Brussels to Bulgaria. Would you like to share his story? And I was thinking it would be great to have a story of someone that's not Bulgarian, that had his own ways into finding his job, his professional development, and he's also part of the NATO, this very important alliance of nations that are this defensive alliance. And you're talking about technologies. I was like, this will be a great way of people that know English to compare their own journeys towards someone that grew in Western Europe and is still heading towards his own personal success. So thank you for being here.
No, thanks a lot for having me. It's great.
Yeah, let's explain in short what your position currently means and what are you doing here with the Gate Institute. Few words about the Gate Institute, few words about the Diana project and agency.
Yep.
And it will be just like a position where we say you're here and afterwards we're going to go back in time just to go through your personal story.
No, with pleasure. And maybe I should just start by quickly saying what it is that we're doing with Diana, because I think then it's also a lot easier to explain what my role is in all of this. So when we started our work on new technologies at NATO, we realized really quickly that, well, we're talking all these all these things about AI and autonomy and so on and so forth, but we don't actually have the tools to effectively engage with the ecosystem that we want to engage with. And at the same time, the security challenges that we face today, they are so complex and they go far beyond the traditional understanding of conflict, and I'm sure we're going to be able to touch on this, that we believe that technologies can be used in both kind of this defensive environment, but also in the civilian space. So we created Diana as an idea really only 2 years ago, and you have to know that, I mean, for a big organization like NATO to launch an initiative like Diana in 2 years, that's really lightning speed for us. And basically, I had the chance to be involved very early on in the conceptualization of Diana, and then to support the stand-up of this organization. And I'm now there the chief of staff, which basically means that I work directly for the managing director of Diana, and I make sure that our management is well orchestrated, is well working together, and that division of our managing director is implemented throughout the organization. And I'm sure we're going to get more to Diana during the podcast. Just in terms of what I'm doing here in Bulgaria right now, is meeting with the Gate Institute. Yeah, so they're one of our test centers here in Bulgaria. They're one of these test centers that we put at the disposal of innovators across the alliance. I mean, it's one is this. The second one is I was speaking at a conference this morning to entrepreneurs and to some of the defense innovators here in Bulgaria to really spread the word about Diana. And then the last thing, and that's also why I'm here, is to really spread the word about this initiative to everybody in Bulgaria, and to also show entrepreneurs, researchers, and disruptors out there that there's a pathway for them to work with NATO, and that we are keen to collaborate with all of them.
That's great. Okay, let's say a few words about like creating something like Diana, and because you said we conceptualized it and built it in 2 years. It took so much time because organizations in general need more time to create a project, like a spin-off or something to work on that's not in their scope initially. It's just something new that you create, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, and I think that's one of the first challenges when you have a big organization that finds something new. And somebody will always tell you, well, I've done it already, I've done it before. Diana has really, in its kind of concept, been in the works for much longer than 2 years. So I started working in this field at NATO roughly 4 years ago, and it's been kind of in the background since then. Yeah, and we had the first kind of written traces of it in early 2020. So it's been kind of in the work since then. Really, the last 2 years was mostly the work with the allies to conceptualize the whole thing. I think what makes innovation or new thinking in a big bureaucracy so challenging is that you have so many interests at stake. Yeah, and I don't even want to say that people don't want to. They just oppose change. Just that they're skeptical of it, and often rightfully so. And so I think what's really difficult, or what's a challenge with driving change in such environments, is that you need to find the narrative and the vision that includes everybody. You need to find something where Georgi, you say, hey, I buy into that. I believe in this, even if it's maybe touching upon something that you did before that didn't work, and so on and so forth. And finding that sweet spot, finding this right narrative, is something that's really challenging. It takes a lot of time, a lot of experimentation, a lot of kind of interpersonal skills to just find the sweet spot of where we're going with this.
All right. Now we are going to follow the usual format of the podcast. We're going to go back in time, so you build context on how you got here, and you've been for a long time in the NATO, in different departments, doing different things through trainee programs, etc.
Yeah.
And by looking at your LinkedIn profile, I saw that you make so many internships, which is something that I admire, because people in Bulgaria rarely go for different things just to find what suits them, their values and their skills the best.
Yeah.
And I think that what Western Europe is so good at is these opportunities that you can go to Brussels, go to Berlin, go to somewhere else, try different things and say, okay, this is what I love the most and I can stay at it. Tell me a bit about you growing up. You mentioned that you are actually born in South Africa.
Yes, absolutely. I was born in South Africa 30 years ago now. It would be very, very tough to say that I remember when I was born. I think nobody does. But looking back at the time, it was an interesting period. It was right in between 1 year after Mandela was released from prison, and 1 year before the first elections in South Africa. So really, I can't.
Interesting times.
It was an interesting time, not for me, for my parents, probably more than for myself. But yeah, so I was born in South Africa. I'm German. My nationality is German. So both my parents are German citizens. And I had the chance to move around quite a bit in my life because of my father's work. And I spent, though, most of my education in French-speaking environments. Yeah, so I did everything from from 5th grade onwards in French, basically, and then also went to French universities, and therefore spent a lot of time living in France and have somehow a very strong strong feeling of belonging also to France, not just to Germany.
So you're bilingual?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Based on your education, not based on your parents being from...
Based on my education, absolutely.
All right.
It was a very tough period when I was like in 5th grade, and I can tell you between 5th and 7th grade, you have other things to do than to learn French every day. But it was basically 2 years, and after in the 7th grade, everything in the school switched to French, the whole school system. And in 5th grade, I went in, I spoke maybe 3 words in French. I could see yes, no, and snowman, for whatever reason, snowman. I had 2 years to kind of change that. And it was a tough period. But honestly, now in hindsight, Every time I can take advantage of French culture, speak in French, I cherish every second that I invested in learning this language. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's something very funny comes to mind. It's these jokes about German and how hard it sounds. You know, this meme about papillon and then Schmetterling. It's amazing.
I was thinking about the exact same thing when you said this.
Yeah, because by the way, I graduated from German language high school. Unfortunately, my German is not that good, but at home I can manage, of course. I will never starve from not being able to buy stuff in Germany or whatever. And my fiancée, my wife, Neda, she's a francophone. She loves French. She works in French. She wants to translate things in French to keep her language at top notch. And we both of us know a bit. We both know English and French, English and German, and it's the both of us know as much as you know in languages. So it was interesting for me going through your LinkedIn profile, because I saw that you visited French universities and I couldn't find the connection. But now you're saying it all sounds so reasonable. How do people in France and Belgium and Germany and Netherlands, for example, go on for finding their educational path? Because when I visit schools in Bulgaria, students rarely know what to study and then what to do, as their professional professional development and career.
Well, to be honest, it's a massive challenge, I think, for everybody. And I think it's not really that one country has found the silver bullet here on how to solve this. I think what I felt like, the big difference, I know the French and the German system, that's what I feel the most comfortable in. And I think there's a very big difference already in just when you apply for universities. So I applied for my university and I knew that I got it before I even finished my A level. So my baccalaureate, before I finished school. So basically I found out, I think in April or so. So even before I started writing the baccalaureate, I knew already that the school would take me if I were to pass my baccalaureate.
Okay.
So that obviously changes things a little bit, because you then you graduate school, you're done with high school, and then you already know that, well, you're going to get to this university. And I think for a lot of the people that I studied with, I was really lucky because I think I loved it from the first moment. I struggled a lot, but I loved it. It was great. But a lot of my friends around me, they also realized, well, actually that's not really for me. And a lot of my friends, one of my best friends, she actually then went off and studied medicine. I studied political science, so she went off and studied medicine, which is a very different field. I think in Germany it's a little bit different. Yeah, so you graduate school, you do your Abitur, your A level, and then it's really up to you to apply and see where you're taken. Yeah, and I think there's a bit more of a wider spread, but I think in general, my message here would simply be, you're young enough, change. Like nobody forces you to study law, you know, or political science or medicine or whatever. And I think what I wish somebody had told me when I was younger is, don't take yourself so seriously. Like you just graduated high school, you just started university. If you drop out after a year and go to another university, that's totally fine. And if you want to take a gap year between university and high school, that's totally fine. Do it. Because honestly, being young is obviously, it's a cool thing. Yeah, you can be like, I'm only X years old and I'm already doing X. But so what? If you're 30 or 31 when you're doing what you wanted to do, it doesn't matter. And I think the person that inspires me the most is my younger sister. She's 2 years younger than me, but she's really I look up to her really. And she did a gap year between university and finishing high school, and really when I see it now, what it brought to her in terms of just confidence and everything.
What did she do?
She worked in a.
People usually go for traveling or work in different jobs.
No, so she worked. And there's a German association that she applied for, and she then went to Israel. She lived in Tel Aviv and worked there in a home for retired Shoah survivors, so Holocaust survivors, and at the same time also did research on anti-Semitism in around Europe and the world, really. And I was really lucky to be there at the same time with her. So I did my third year abroad in Tel Aviv, so studied there as well. So we're lucky enough to be there together. And when I look at my sister now, she did this year abroad, which, for example, when I speak to a lot of my French friends, they think it's a complete waste of time. And I think from my humble perspective, when I look at her, this is where she became the person she is today. And I think there's no such thing as wasting time when you're young. Learn something, do something, jump into things.
It's investing time, isn't it?
Sorry?
It's more about investing time.
Investing time, absolutely. And I think it's about investing time, but it's also about wasting time. There will be no other point in your life when you will have so much time to be creative, curious, flexible as you will have in this period between high school and during your studies. This is the time to mess around. And if you do a year studying something completely different that you will never use in your life afterwards, that's fantastic. And that's a good thing where you will learn stuff for your life and be inspired to be curious and open to new possibilities. And there is no such thing as a predefined path
to success. Yeah, I know. It's interesting because you I think it's about the tempo of life. It's different the way that life flows in Bulgaria and France and Germany. Because I spent some time in Germany. I also had a lot of friends went there to universities in Nuremberg, in Erfurt, in Berlin, Düsseldorf, everywhere around Germany. And my fiancée went to Bordeaux for her Erasmus year abroad. And you were saying that the people in France just a bit more like rushy into things because they don't want to waste time after high school just go to Sorbonne or wherever they want to study. And in the States, in Germany, it's more about like traveling, learning new stuff that's might be relevant to you, but you want to try and to make a wider like perspective on the world, which is for me it's a great way of doing things. In Bulgaria, it's a bit harder because not all of the parents can afford like foreign universities, and it's not a given. But there are ways that people can do it. That they can go for different internships. We're going to dig deep into like what are the opportunities for like NATO internships for students for high after high school or whatever. It's great. I had a visitor on the podcast, a guest of Ogi. He told me he lives in Madrid and he spent a lot of time in scale focus in Munich and around the world. And he said there's a Spanish proverb that the traveling it's getting rid of your stupidity. It's basically like opening your eyes, and I love it because it's in Bulgaria you can learn only as much as your environment knows, and you might be communicating only with people that never traveled and they don't know.
I think that's spot on, and I think if you look a little bit at kind of, I mean, of course, I mean, you need to have the means and you need to have the means to actually do such things, to be able to. And it's coming from a huge position of privilege. You have to say waste time.
Yeah,
because I think for the majority of people, and rightfully so, it's about, well, you have to get to the resources at one point, But I think there's also different ways of wasting time, and again, I think maybe investing time is here the better notion. So, one thing that taught me so much is that during my bachelor studies, so I graduated high school and I wanted to do this political science thing.
Why? Why political science?
So, I mean, first of all, that's the environment I knew. Yeah. So that's the environment that I knew from home. But there was also a very big element in understanding how the world around me how societies around me work. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's and I think there was a big, what I loved about political science was it gave you a wonderful excuse to dive into any issue in the world that you thought was interesting and explore it. And so I had this privilege during my bachelor studies in particular, but then also during my first master studies, that basically every other week I could choose a new topic that I wanted to learn about, write a paper about, or do a presentation on. And so that meant that I could do 1 week of exploring how Shiite militias in Iraq have a link to preachers from Egypt, and then the next day I would look at about kind of post-colonial kind of exploitation of resources in different environments, or and then the next day you would look at, well, how is the security landscape changing? It was also a very interesting period. It was during the Arab Springs and so on and so forth. So it was just honestly, it was I never had really a doubt whether I wanted to do this or not. But there was one thing I loved. My grandfather gave me, when I was maybe 8 or so, his super old camcorder. Really, I mean, crappy thing. Like, you put a cassette in, it never worked. I loved it. I loved filmmaking. And so this means that while I was while I was in high school, for example, I did a number of summer internships with video production and TV production companies, and worked with them a little bit. I did like some stop motion stuff. Then I got involved with music labels, did music videos for them, and then did short movies and stuff like this. And I loved it. It was great. And I also, even during university, and that was the cool thing, was during my university studies, the director of the campus that I went to, he loved it, because it was kind of an extracurricular activity. The students were learning something else there, and he supported it wholeheartedly. And I remember one day we're doing a short movie for a festival, and he came to see me and was like, "Okay, so Moritz, what do you need to make this movie a success?" I was like, "Yeah, sir, you know what?" And I just thought, okay, I'm gonna try it. And I thought an airport would be great. We kind of need an airplane, you know. And so he laughed and walked off, and I was like, okay, this was a funny conversation, and I kind of like continued doing my thing. And then like in the evening, 10 o'clock at night, my phone rings. It's like, yeah, I got you the airport, I got you the airplane. I mean, of course we couldn't fly it, but we could go to the airport, film in a private jet. It was fantastic. And what I mean to say by that is, this filmmaking, what it taught me and what I still feel from it today was, for example, this vision. Yeah, if you want to get people to work for you for free, because I didn't have any money to spend on these films. So if I want people to work for me for free, I need to sell them a vision. Yeah, if I want to have an actor or whatever, they need to be excited about this. They need to be like, wow, I want to be part of this movie, and I want to be, it's a great cause, and so on and so forth. And it's the same thing that I'm doing now with at work. You need to organize people. It doesn't help if you have 20 people that all want to play the same role. Some of them will have to do the role that nobody wants to do. So it's also about, well, telling people, prioritizing stuff, working with people, and making sure that they find their place in the whole thing. And then there's a big element of basically resource, even though there's no resource, but resource allocation, which is like, okay, the little money that we were able to scramble together, like, how do we spend it, and so on and so forth. And sorry, I'm getting very excited about this filmmaking. That's actually not the topic of the conversation, but I just really loved it. And at the time, I think there were a number of people that told me, hey, come on, man, like, you're not doing great at university. Maybe you just kind of like focus on that. And I'm glad I didn't.
Why? Because it sounded, what I've learned from interviewing so many people is that the topic that makes the people rant and they just talk in such a ecstatic way and like full of energy is what really inspires them, and something that's very emotional. So the question here would be, why wouldn't you follow your dream? I mean, camcording and doing all the video stuff. And funny thing that me and Setsu earlier, we were talking about a slow motion stuff, and he showed me something. He's going to show it to you later on, like a small commercial. But pursued like something that's way more academical, like political science.
well, I mean, I think it would be wrong to say, for example, that I didn't fall completely in love with political science either, and the possibilities that are there. You know, there was this moment. There was this moment when I started my first master studies that actually it's suddenly my most valuable resource. I mean, okay, apart from trying to survive in Paris on a student kind of allocation, was time. And I mean, reading my master studies was so intense. It was really, really hard work. That I honestly I couldn't do it anymore. And then there was this moment where especially when I came back, when I finished my bachelor studies and I came back from Israel and I had filmed there a little bit as well. I lived in the Palestinian territories as well, where I did some projects with in refugee camps and so on and so forth, also with filmmaking. And there was this moment where I was like, okay, I could potentially go into film, and I would really like that. But I saw already that I was getting less and less interested in the films that I had been doing, so music videos and short films, and more interested in, for example, political reporting with film. And I knew that I didn't want to become a journalist. I knew that I wanted to be, instead of the one reporting on elements, and I have my utmost admiration for the journalistic profession, instead of reporting on them, I wanted to be the one who does them and who's also being criticized for them, you know? And with filmmaking, really what tipped the balance, what kind of was that I realized that the position that I was in university, I wouldn't be able to maintain in the professional world, you know? I was the producer, cameraman, director.
One-man show.
Right. It was kind of like you could bring your vision to life.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist in the professional. I mean, if you're the most successful, whatever, but you will have to go through a lot of iterations of. So it was kind of. It was at that point where I was like, okay, I love filmmaking, I love photography and all these kind of things. I love your cameras here, by the way. I just gonna focus on something where I feel like I'm gonna have more, actually, where I will be able to be more creative in another way, but I will be able to be more creative than in this field.
To me, it sounded like you were very rational and not emotional about it. And
I'm German, huh?
I was going there.
There's no fun.
I was going there. People here, if they found the passion that you had for filmmaking here, they'll be like, I know what I want to do. This is my thing. This is my life. And sometimes it's very hard to say what's emotional and what's rational. And that's why I usually make a list. I'm like, what are the pros? What are the cons? Which list is longer? Which list is heavier? Into like opportunities, into like the cost that I need to pay, because I started my podcast while I was bootstrapping it, working for Lufthansa. And in the beginning it was just an iPad, and people were like, you're a one-man show. I had a friend of mine, Radu, he was editing, but I knew I was so passionate about talking to successful people, and I knew that this can be my life's work, not as job, but the work, like my way of building something that lasts. And only years later, I was like, this can go really big. This can be my work that also pays my bills and allows me. Right now, it's like 7-8 in the evening. We are here in the studio. This is my studio. This is my office, my studio.
Yeah.
And these are my cameras, which are like movie cameras. And this is my professional equipment. And I've never like even dreamt. It was just like step by step going towards something that helps others.
Yeah.
So being German, and it's only like cultural that you're like, okay, let's be rational about it. And I can always do what fulfills my heart with joy, but I can still have my job.
Yeah, no, that's true. And listen, I mean, I think I will never know whether this was the
but
right
it was your decision.
It was my decision. Yeah, no,
not
absolutely.
parents. No,
absolutely not.
Yeah.
Zero. No, and I think this was it was my decision because I wanted to. I mean, you know, there is of course there's a certain amount of rationality in all of this. Yeah, it's also kind of looking, okay, where am I better at? And I think honestly, so I still have my videos, obviously, that I did, and I loved them, and it was so much fun. But I think I think I'm a better political scientist than I'm a filmmaker at the end. Yeah. So I think you're very, very good at podcasts. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't have the success and be able to build such a studio that you have now. I think for me it was also a realization that maybe there's a bit more passion than ability here. And it's also, when you grow up I lived in Berlin for 6 years when I grew up, and Berlin is a very creative city.
I love the city.
It's a great city. It's a fantastic city. If you grow up there and you do all the things that you shouldn't do, then it's time to leave. But there were so many people that were chasing an idea, and never really, and never really recognized that maybe the ability wasn't kind of following up on what they wanted to do. And I think for me it was a harsh realization as well. So we were doing this. I was trying to do a documentary film in Jerusalem, and that was the moment where I realized I'm actually I can't make this my life's work. Yeah. So it was not the kind of. It was more for me. It was a declining path than a kind of like improving path in terms of how I thought about the possibility of change there. But nevertheless, and I think that's the important thing here is I consider this time as even if I spent all nights because the studying in France is bloody hard. It's so much, like the time investment is insane. I spent so much time in addition to that, like all the nights and all the weekends and getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to render some. I loved it, and I still love it, and I still look back at it saying it was fantastic and amazing experience. I learned so much from this. And there's no regret really. I don't. I think it was more of a realization that maybe I should leave the filmmaking to some more gifted people.
Yeah, you go, Casey Neistat.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Casey. Yeah, absolutely.
You might have been the German Casey Neistat. Who would know?
Yeah.
We were.
I have not enough hair for this.
You only need sunglasses. Okay. So, what usually happens in people in universities in Europe, they go to like exotic destinations, or they travel to Singapore, to INSEAD, or wherever. You decided to go from Western Europe to a conflict zone. Israel is actually, it has its own conflict, and now we have hopefully not a war, but it's
we're pretty much there.
Very intensive conflict there. So why did you choose Israel and Tel Aviv for your gap?
It was a gap year. I mean, was part of my bachelor studies. It didn't count as a gap. It was just a year abroad, basically.
Yeah, sorry for my lapses.
No worries. It was. So there was a very. There were two motivations really. The first one was that what I studied. So my first studies, you can call them political science, but basically European studies. But my focus was always on international security. So that's also what my first master was on, international security studies. And what fascinated me about international security is obviously studying the root causes of conflict, but then also how do you deal with conflict and how do you tackle conflict? How do you build peace? And with all my respect for everybody that has worked in this field, I think the conflict in and around Israel it's one of the worst case scenarios that you can have. I mean, we have since decades we have a continuous conflict, whether it's a cold or hot. I mean, it's continuously there. And so it was an opportunity for me to actually go there and see, and study
firsthand.
Why is this conflict not stopping? Why is it constantly ongoing? And for that, it was fantastic that I could first live in Jerusalem, did a language class there, then I moved to Tel Aviv, and then I did an internship in Ramallah in the Palestinian territories. So I really got to see the different sides. So that was one motivation. The other motivation
to
is
expose yourself,
challenge yourself. I didn't speak Arabic, I didn't speak Hebrew. I learned both languages. I started studying both languages there. I loved it. So beautiful languages, really it is.
Do you know now both?
I did, but unfortunately, I mean, I joined NATO because I wanted to go into the region again. This didn't happen. We're gonna get to that later. But I kind of, I learned Arabic for 5 years and Hebrew for a year. Unfortunately, I've lost most of it. I can maybe still read a little bit, but that's about it. But there was a second reason why I went, and that's because I'm German. and we have a horrible history with the Holocaust, and there is a very, very special relationship between Germany and Israel. And I'm not Jewish, but my family was well, as many people in Germany were part of the NSDAP, of the Nazi Party, and so there was also, and I think there was a similar reason why my sister went to Israel, was that there was, from very early on in Germany, you get a sense of responsibility of what it means to be German, and the responsibility that you have towards kind of the respect of human rights and dignity everywhere.
How is this thing? We in Bulgaria have similar issue that we've been under Ottoman slavery for 5 centuries, and which was just before we were liberated in 1878, and it's still in the very vital part of the educational curriculum in Bulgaria. Nevertheless, we've been under Soviet occupation for 3 years. After the Second World War, we were afterwards a part of the Soviet bloc, not officially part of the USSR, but basically being heavily influenced by the Big Brother.
Yeah,
and there are things that are very heavily emphasized in the school program about it, and things that are completely left out. So it's how is this German educational system teaching young Germans about the responsibility of treating others fairly and respecting human rights, and being aware of what happened in these times between 1935 and 1945, all this growth of the party, and then the initiation of Second World War, all this Holocaust, and afterwards the responsibility that was clearly taken by the country. In Berlin, there is a very massive open museum about these atrocities. So how is this educational system? Because I'm more and more thinking about education as a key about treating others with respect, following the good practices and learning from your mistakes. Not making mistakes, but learning from mistakes, because everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah, totally. I mean, okay, I've full disclaimer, I went to a French school, so I'm not the expert on the German educational system, but I can definitely talk about the German kind of remembrance culture.
Yeah.
So I think what's quite interesting, and just to retrace it very quick, is that of course, with the defeat of Nazi Germany in 1945, there was actually for quite a long time in Germany nobody wanted to hear about it.
Elephant in the room.
Yeah, no, not even elephant in the room. Was kind of like, okay, the war is over, let's carry on. I mean, we have to rebuild this country. Yeah, and Germany was separated, and people had. Honestly, there was enough trauma in the different families on whether the fathers would come back. Yeah, so on my father's father's side, they waited for many years after the war for his father to come back from captivity. So I think was in many other countries, this was kind of the predominant reason. And really, this only changed only much later, like in the 1960s, 70s, when there were the big trials, and there was kind of German. This was the first time that German children went to see their parents and asked them, "What did you do?" And these were very tough discussions. Today, when we look at kind of remembrance, I think that what Germany does very well is to recognize, or what Germans do very well is recognize the responsibility, and the responsibility in terms of what happened during the Holocaust, what happened during the Second World War, what happened during the First World War as well. But my problem is that we learn it in historical isolation.
What does this mean?
So we learn it in terms of this happened back then, and we have to learn it, and we have to be sorry for what happened in 1945 and 1940, and we have to be, no questions asked. But what I would like to get out of this is a call for action for today. And when we look at the kind of the social discussions everywhere across Europe, really, if we look at the rise of Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, the lack of tolerance, this is something that we're struggling with everywhere. And what I would like to see more in the educational system is exactly what you just mentioned, is kind of a call for action. Like, how are you? How does tolerance work? How does togetherness work? And how does respect work? And how do you respect that people might have a different opinion than you, which doesn't mean that you will never be able to agree on anything. And I think that's just something I would like to see a lot more, because I think there's so much, like the Holocaust and Holocaust memories is so present in our minds as Germans. I mean, every 9th of November it comes back, but I think it's important that we just don't kind of take it as something that happened in history.
Yeah.
And remember it as something that happened in history. This is a call for action for all of us to.
Just if I understood correctly, your point was that during that times people were separated, of course, driven by the party, that people were like divided into, like, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, and we treat bad guys like badly. So, and now we are seeing this everywhere. Like, I think it's throughout the entire world, maybe presumably in Europe and the States, of course, this separation and this the rise of nationalism.
Yeah.
Like, which I like to talk to about Harari's explanation of what nationalism is and what's the difference between being patriotic and being a nationalist.
Yeah.
The one is like thinking that you are unique and special, and the other one is thinking that you're better than the other nations. And I can see that clearly. There are also the problem that I see is that this is this separation, then there are like sub-separations in the different groups. And I'm 37 years old. I'm a bit older than you, but I've never seen something that like into extremes as like, and every year we dig deeper into extremities, which is bad. And we can see it in Ukraine. A lot of people in Bulgaria are supporting Russia for no apparent reason whatsoever, and like people that are running from the war are treated like as garbage here by people that are, I don't understand where's the humanity in someone that's running from the war.
I think there's a phenomenon that I would call selective humanity at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. So you ask for humanity for certain parts of people, and discredit humanity for others. Yeah. So you are human. You are humane with those that you like, and you take this then as an excuse to be non-humane to others.
The others.
And I think
it's the same thing as Second World War. It's literally the same thing.
I think everything has its nuances, of course, and so on and so forth. But it's like, I think there's definitely it's a worrying trend that we see this kind of I would call it selective humanism. To kind of like you kind of choose who you stand for, and for me, I think this is also one of the main drivers for me then to say, okay, well, international security, international cooperation, this is the way to go. Because these challenges, I mean, sorry, but if you're against refugees today, then wait until climate change really hits. Yeah, we're gonna see so much more people that are forced to leave their homes because we because we just industrialized like crazy in Western Europe. It's a reality that we have to come to terms with, that this is gonna continue, but we're not gonna find the solutions to these challenges by sitting on our butts somewhere and saying the way it is right now is fine. Let's keep it that way. It's not going to stay that way. The world is changing, not just because of exponential technologies. It's changing because of global insecurity challenges that are becoming more and more interconnected, that are impossible to dissociate from one another. And now you're telling me that we should just kind of close the borders and we're going to be all right? No. No, it's not. It's the world is continuing to evolve, and currently at a very rapid pace. And in a way, I also understand then the adverse reaction of saying, all of this is just way too complex for me. I don't want to deal with this complexity. Give me easy answers. I don't want to hear a yes, but. I want to hear a yes or a no. Yeah. And I can understand that. You want to have a clear kind of, this is where you're going. But this is really what I love about, well, the political science aspects of this all, is that we actually have to work on these subjects and interest ourselves to the outside world.
But this complexity creates empowers this separation in a way, because you're saying the answer might not be yes, might not be no, it might be something in between, and people will just rationalize, oh, this is happening because a bad person in the room somewhere hidden from everyone is just pressing one button, which is not the case. Like this is like you said, like Western Europe industrialized, but also like China is very heavy on industrialization. Russia is heavy on industrialization. I mean, it's world, like it's the whole world's problem that only few countries that are in a way more sensible about the outcomes are working towards like fixing them.
And I think it's the sense of urgency. Yeah. So I mean, we don't have I fully agree with you. Obviously, I mean, Western Europe is not the only ones that polluted the world. But I think what's so unfair right now is if you travel in Central Africa or in Eastern Africa, these are or in the Middle East, for example. Yeah, these are the environments where you feel the effects of climate change to the extent that it makes life unlivable. Yeah, think of the crazy heat waves that we had in India, for example. Yeah, but these are not necessarily the people that actually profited from the industrialization. Yeah, because I mean, I'm growing up, and when I grew up, when I was young, you were young. We probably both remember every winter snow. Now there's no more snow in winter. But it's something that, I mean, at least in Belgium or where I live. But it's something that it's not something that directly impacts my livelihood. Yeah. If you look at people that have to survive in 40, 50 degrees Celsius heat in summer for several weeks, this is a whole other impact on your life. So I think that's just what I mean with the sense of responsibility as well. That, I mean, not responsibility, but these are people that are so heavily affected by our lives, by our lifestyle, that they will have to flee at one point. They will have to relocate.
Yeah, these are 21st century issues.
We got a little bit carried away, I have to say, but it wasn't.
Yeah, it's interesting because I cannot have such a conversation with everyone, and being so in depth with the issues and the regional conflicts, and imagine like you are in the middle of a regional conflict and there are refugees going through this conflict because they need to pass in a way. Yeah. Like because right now, for example, like Syria's conflict is very close to Israel and Palestine. There was also this earthquake last year in Turkey and on the border with Syria as well. And now we have, before that there were the Afghan and Iraqi refugees fleeing. Yep. We also saw what happened when the US forces left Afghanistan and Kabul, and like people are like, what's going on? And some people don't have any choice whatsoever. They need to stay and
survive, really. And I think often we forget about the privilege that we have, that we don't have to think about survival. But we have to think about we have easier questions.
Yeah, Maslow's pyramid is there, and we need to think about other people's choices when they need to make these very, very hard choices. Yeah. And send their kids. I was having a very interesting conversation today with people from the Bulgarian Helsinki Committee, talking about unattended refugee kids, people that like kids that are left on their own to travel through borders and seas and winter terrain and being attacked by guard dogs and going to Germany because they know that this is like the best place to be, and it most like some people just die on the way, and it's very hard.
But I think when I look at the debate, the public debate, and that really accounts for all the public debates I've seen on this topic, I think there's actually sorry, I didn't come up with a better example for selective humanism earlier, but we would have people discredit the lives of these children fleeing horror because they don't like that they're from a certain religion. They don't like that their color has a certain, their skin has a certain color, but at the same time, then, for example, claim for humanism for people that look like them, and that share the same religion and so on and so forth, and maybe that are homeless and they deserve as much of our humanity as everybody else, but we can't just select one group that we want to apply our humanistic values to.
We're either good people or we're not. It's simple as that. I was here asking myself, why did you get the second master's degree then? When you were so clear about what you wanted to study.
No, I mean, good question. So I did my first master degree in international security, and while I was studying there, I did internships first in the Palestinian territories for the German Development Corporation Agency, and then I did 2 more internships, one in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I was back when Russia first invaded Ukraine.
2014.
Yeah, absolutely. So during the first ceasefire, fascinating period, learned a lot there. And then afterwards I went to the Ministry for Development Corporation and then kind of crisis response. And so there was a lot of German agencies, a lot of German ministries, and I honestly, I had the feeling, well, actually, what I want to do is not work for. I had the privilege to grow up in such a kind of international environment by going to French universities and studying in Israel and so on and so forth, that I felt like, okay, no, actually, what I want to do is drive international collaboration, and for me to do it properly, I want to understand the European Union better, because that's the vehicle that we have in Europe to do exactly that. And there was this master program, 1 year only, in Bruges in Belgium, called the College of Europe. It's the university was founded basically quite shortly after the start of the kind of European project, and it was a 1 year program, and I felt like, come on, 1 more year, we can do 1 more year, 1 more year of studies, and really kind of dive deep into what it means to be a European and working in the European institutions, and understanding that a lot better, and seeing how we can leverage these mechanisms to drive change. And what was really interesting back then, in my first master studies, I focused on Shiite militias in Iraq and their fight against Daesh, so against ISIS. And then in my second master, I focused on democratization through decentralization in Ukraine. So how do you promote democracy by creating kind of more and more local structures? So local accountability, really. So you know the person that decides on the road in front of your house, basically. And there was, I learned a lot by just completely switching topics, countries of specialization, fields. And of the realities around me. So I think academically, maybe there wasn't after 5 years of studies, there wasn't that much that I learned during this 1 year. But I met a lot of people that I now count among my best friends. I met a lot of people that are extremely inspiring, do fantastic things in all kind of domains. And I got the opportunity to really dive deep into one topic, and that was the European Union and the functioning of the European Union back then.
So usually when people are unaware of positive results towards themselves, they avoid going into conflict topics. And what you said is like, you wanted to put yourself into conflict topics so you can help in solving them in a way. Nevertheless, just tell me a bit about this brave hopping into different internships, just so you find what suits you. What's the logic behind such decisions in a like Western European culture, and like you as a part of it?
So there's 2 parts of it, I would say. The first one, I'm going to take this one first because it's the boring one, is necessity. The Brussels job market is pure insanity. So
describe insanity.
No, I mean, Brussels, you speak three languages, like,
Yeah.
I speak 4, I speak 5.
Doesn't count for anything.
It doesn't count for anything. So 3 languages already, I mean, in every national capital, you would be like, yeah, I speak 3 languages. It would be like, cool. In Brussels, like, okay, good for you. Next topic, please. Then at the same time, people in Brussels, people that come to Brussels to work there, they're not there because they're stupid. And you know what I think for somebody like me with a political science background, I'm a generalist by training. I was trained to say something smart that sounds smart. If you then poke me on the subject, I might fall apart. And if I'm lucky, I can stand my ground. That's how I was trained, and it's a skill to be a generalist. That's fine, you know. I think now, with the work on Diana, and I'm going to speak on that later. I'm building up a real expertise there, but I was trained to be a generalist. So, and you have a lot of people in Brussels that are generalists, but in addition to that, they've done a PhD on whatever, and you're like, come on, man, this can't be serious. Like, how am I supposed to compete on this job market? And in addition to that, in Brussels, you have a shitload of... Sorry, can I...
Yeah, of course.
I have a shitload of people who do 5 internships. They're 30 by the time that they finish their internships. And then they decide to apply for a job. And you're like, come on, guys, you got to be kidding me. Like, how am I, coming out of university now, supposed to compete against you? You should apply for a job, not for a proper job, not for like a temporary contract agent job, like the entry level positions that we all have. So necessity is the first one. You gotta stand out somehow. And I see it now myself. I mean, last year we recruited 10, 15 people, yeah, and yes, education counts, and you look at what people did, but most important, you look at are the jobs that they did before actually in any way compatible with what we're doing? Do we think that they are transferable knowledge? Knowledge and experience and expertise. So that was the first one, pure necessity. Yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it if you want to succeed.
You got to do it just to improve yourself, to have a chance to...
Yeah, you got to have it on your CV. But in addition to that, and I think that's the necessity one is one where I would just say, people, you got to do your internships. In addition to that, there is the personal development one. And I mean, as we said earlier, there is no time where you're going to be as free as when you're getting out of university, when you're in university, to experiment what you want to do.
Yeah.
And luckily now, it wasn't necessarily the case when I was doing internships. You're getting paid for them, or at least in the Brussels bubble and also around that. So you can afford it as well to do these internships. But really, I would encourage people to see this as the best way to try whether you like the job or not. And you know, I had this I had this moment. I was working in the task force for Ukraine. I was an intern there in the German Federal Foreign Office. And I had the privilege and the opportunity to join one of the Normandy 4 discussions. So Normandy 4 discussions were a group of, was basically the French, the Germans, the Ukrainians, and the Russians around one table, negotiating peace for Ukraine. And I remember it was on a weekend, and it was 2 o'clock at night or 3 o'clock at night, and they had just finished the negotiations, and I was helping. I think I was more bothering him than anything else, but I was helping my colleague to write a report on the negotiations that had to go out to capitals just the day after. And I remember going home that night, and you know Berlin, so you know that at night nobody sleeps during the weekend. So I was there in my badly fitting suit, going home, a little bit tipsy from like a couple of beers that we had afterwards, and I was like, this was probably one of the I just witnessed history in a way. And you know, now in the grand scheme of things, there were plenty of these Normandy 4 meetings. There are plenty of such meetings every day. But for me, it was like I just witnessed something that really matters. And that was the point where, for me, no more questions. This is the path that I'm going to go down. This is what I want to do in my life. This
to
I
have
want
an
to do
impact.
with my life. Yeah, I mean, even if it's just a small
to
impact,
be part
but you can make change there, you know? And I think that often people think, the government, they're deciding this and that. but there are actually people working there that help make these decisions, and they're making them for good reasons. I haven't met anybody so far that's like deliberately taking wrong decisions, and I think this for me was a real turning point in terms of, hey, I want to do this. I want to be part of this. And then I did other internships where I was like, there's an interesting topic, but honestly, the vibe here and the people and the pace, I want high pace. I need like if my agenda is not full, I'm bored. Like I want pace. I want to do stuff. I want to
win.
I want to be active the whole time, and I'm a little bit kind of restless the whole time, and my girlfriend hates this, but it's like, it's
you're like hyperactive. I'm hyperactive too.
You just got to do it, and it was, and for me this moment was like, damn, this is what I want to do. And then another internship I did, and this I can really recommend to everybody who would like to go into the Brussels bubble, is to look at the internships from the European Parliament and the European Commission. They're fantastic internship programs. And there I had the chance to integrate a cabinet of a European commissioner. And there's no cooler thing on the planet, at least for a political scientist, boring political scientist from Germany like me, to study for 6 years on the Middle East, on Ukraine, on kind of global insecurity challenges, and then join the cabinet of a commissioner, so a minister basically, at European level, who works on all of these topics. And you're like, hey, this is like, even if I'm just a small little wheel here,
cogwheel.
Yeah, and you see, hey, I can have an impact with this, and I can contribute here in a very small way, but I can contribute. And for me, these internships were a validation exercise, really, of what is it that I want to do. And for example, in doing my ministries in the German agencies and so on and so forth, I realized very quickly, hey, this is fantastic, I love it, but I want to do this with Bulgarians at my side, with Hungarians at my side, with Americans, and so on and so forth, in an international setting, may that be the European Union or NATO.
Yeah. So you basically experienced the situation that confirmed that you are doing what you want to be doing for the rest of time.
I also had many moments where I experienced that I don't want to do this.
And you said, okay, these are not my things, and I want.
And I think, at this point, I wasn't really. It wasn't like I was trying out wildly different things when I was younger. I was kind of lucky enough to like always be able to adapt quickly enough before really jumping into something that I really didn't like. But also in a field like international relations, you have a lot of nuances, and it's the same for, if I look at, if I work now a lot with different consultancies, and consultancies are they're a very prominent way for graduates to get their first job experiences, and there's massive differences in terms of culture between all these companies, and so just like do the internship, try out the culture. Do you like it? No, don't go there. Like it? Yes, maybe apply there. I think it's... Yeah.
So this was the moment that you decided that you're going to go to NATO?
Well, I mean, I applied for NATO. So the NATO internship program is as institutionalized as it is for the European Commission, for example. Yeah. So you just have a central application where you apply, and then you're accepted or you're not, and you go through a selection process.
What's important to be able to get an acceptance? What skills or what are the things that you need to have? I mean, because people in Bulgaria might be interested to join NATO's programs. And
first of all, I really encourage them to do so. It's a fantastic opportunity to discover how this word works. So what I would say, I mean, the main criteria are on the website, and I'm not going to overwrite the website now. So please don't call me out if I say something wrong. But obviously, I mean, you should speak a working language. Yeah, so English would be great, and then obviously your own language. You should have a degree in an environment that could be of use. And here I'm not a lot of people have this preconception that if you want to go into the European Commission or NATO, you got to be a political scientist or something like that. No, I mean, we look at engineers, we look at engineers, we look at linguists, we look at all kinds of different fields that make a career there. And then you should be reasonably advanced in your studies. And I'm not saying this because...
What's reasonably advanced?
Well, I mean, you should be at a stage where you would
masters.
be... Yeah, and a bachelor... I think at least you should have a bachelor degree. I think honestly, to get into European Commission, there's some people that manage to get into the Blue Book traineeship with just a bachelor. Honestly, do the master before. I'm also saying that not so much because I want to delay things, but there's a time and place for internships as well, you know? And I would really say that, like, when you look at the Blue Book traineeship that you can do with the European Commission, or if you look at the traineeship you can do with NATO, this is not a throwaway internship. What I mean by throwaway internship is kind of you do it and then it's fine, you know, like you carry on with your life. These internships can potentially lead to jobs.
Yeah, these are entry-level positions.
They prepare you for entry-level positions, and they have a reputation. It's difficult to get into these internships. It's not easy.
NATO is the alliance that protects the entire Europe.
Yeah, no, it's not easy to get into not easy to get in. So a lot of other entities also see it as kind of a badge of honor. You've kind of made it through this selection process. Well, then you got to be good enough for us in a way, you know. And maybe they're not always right with that, but I mean that's at least a perception. So I would also recommend, when looking at the Blue Book and the NATO internship program, to really consider it as something that's like I always said I want these to be my last internships. Like after this, I'm done with internships. Like I want to get a real job,
So what was your personal experience joining NATO? Like, did you had expectations that were not met, or something like this is precisely what I want to do, or because you've been to different departments, you were like, okay, we are here, we're handling something that's not my thing, and I can internally rotate to different department, different teams.
Yeah. So before joining NATO, I was in the cabinet of this European commissioner, and that's kind of like as much fun as you can have as an intern. And then I joined NATO, and I joined the international military staff at NATO. So I worked for the first time in my life only with military, only people in uniform. I remember the first day I got into my office. I have an office mate, a lieutenant colonel, and he was like, "Hi, Moritz, how are you doing? I do every 2 hours I do 20 push-ups. Are you joining?" And so every 20 minutes we closed the door to our office and did 20 push-ups. I got really buff during these first months. You don't see it anymore now. I switched to cycling, so now it's all on the legs. So it was definitely a culture shock.
Yeah,
but a good one in a way. You know, I think if you start your internship and you think, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, and everything is perfect and there are butterflies everywhere, then you're in the wrong internship. You got to struggle. You have to struggle in these things. You have to feel overwhelmed. You have to feel like, what the heck is going on? How am I going to learn all of this? Because you're not going to learn. At least that's my motivator. I don't understand something. I feel overwhelmed by something. I want to tackle it and control it. If I get into an internship and I get the easiest tasks on the planet.
So if you don't challenge yourself, you're stuck. You're not developing.
Okay. I think so.
Yeah, this is personal opinion, and it's important that you're saying it, because it shows motivation and ambition. And I want to inspire people that are listening that if you're ambitious and you're really keen on what you're doing, hardship is the only, like in Bulgaria say, you are thrown into the deep to learn swimming.
The cold water, yeah. I think, you know, I mean, you got to work for your own success in a way, and like you got to.
Who works for your own success if you're not working?
No,
on your
absolutely.
own success?
But I mean, you join an internship. That doesn't mean that now there's going to be 20 people around you that's going to tell you, oh, Moritz, and this is how you're going to do this, and this is how you're going to do that. No, they're going to tell you, do this, and then you got to better figure out how to do it. And so I think that's one element. So I had the chance to be there in the military staff, and what's great about military is that they don't really get the concept of interns. So meaning if you're in a civilian context, you're an intern, you're the new one that's going to leave in 6 months. And so it's like, okay, what kind of task can we give this person, and how can we kind of get him or get her involved in our activities? In the military, rotation is the name of the game. I mean, they rotate all the time. They're never more than 1 or 2 years on a post, and so they're completely used to somebody coming in who's only there for a limited amount of time. So I remember coming in there, and the colonel that I was working for was like, yeah, so we had this guy leaving. He was doing counterterrorism policy. I saw that you studied something like this. You're going to take care of this now. And of course, I mean, I was working for him, and he was reading everything I did and making sure that stuff worked. But what he gave me then for the first time was a portfolio and responsibility. Yeah. So if the general that we were working for needed speaking points, so kind of the stuff that they read out and on the subject, then I had to deliver them. And if the quality wasn't good enough, I had to stand up for it. And for me, that was a massive learning curve, because also in the military everything is very structured, and you kind of like, everybody knows that it was me who wrote the messed up shit. So that was really good. Another element I would say, and so that's just coming to your second point of your question with kind of rotating and then also seeing and kind of doing different things at NATO. This was, I think in particular in the beginning of your career. No, actually, always in your career, I think you should always have the next step in mind. What is the next thing that you want to do? What? And this might change, and you might fail at doing what you want to do, but it might lead you on a different path that is equally enjoyable.
Is it about perspective?
It's
just
about,
to know which way you're heading.
No, so yeah, it's about perspective, but I think it's useful to have a very clear, to set yourself maybe an unachievable goal. Unachievable, not achievable goal. So, for example, can I give you an example, or
yes,
is this going too quickly?
Yeah.
No, so I joined NATO, and I worked in counterterrorism, but I wrote in my application, well, the reason why I want to join NATO is that I want to go to the NATO offices that we had back then in Afghanistan and in Iraq, because I learned Hebrew. I learned Arabic. Hebrew doesn't help that much. I learned Arabic. I studied Shiite militias in Iraq. That was kind of my main topic of study during my first master's. This was what I wanted to do. I wanted to go. I saw NATO really as a vehicle for me to go back to the region that I love so much and that I want to work with. And so that's why after the internship, I then got in touch with a program called the Science for Peace and Security program at NATO, which at first sight has nothing to do with Iraq. But they were doing scientific collaboration between NATO and NATO partner countries, and Iraq is a NATO partner country. And I had seen some people that had gone through that exact unit, and then had gone to Iraq and Afghanistan. And this was like, okay, cool. This is what I want to do. This maybe not me going straight to Iraq and Afghanistan. I applied for stuff. I applied for everything I could see that could bring me closer to that. I was like, okay, well, this is close enough. So I went there and worked a little bit, really just in complete, like on the sidelines on collaboration with Iraqi scientists. But this was the place that then opened my eyes to the world of innovation, technology, scientific collaboration that I didn't know before really existed.
And this switched path.
I completely switched path. I mean, that's what I said. Like my Arabic is gone. Like back until this point, I learned every morning half an hour Arabic, like every day. And that moment, I mean, of course, I didn't kind of like stop from one moment to the other, but it was really for me now. When I look back at it, it was a complete pivot in where I'm going with my life.
Because of the interest that was sparked by something new. By tech. And like before that, I was set on, okay, I'm gonna do this here, and then I want to become a German diplomat so I can travel the world and work in different embassies, or I'm gonna join the European External Action Service, the European Foreign Office, basically. But there was, and I'm not excluding all of these things. It might happen.
Might happen. But at that moment, I was like, wow, there's this tech of like entrepreneurship. There's this field of entrepreneurship, technologies that are changing everything out there. And we can now define how we as an alliance look at these technologies. That was, I remember the first moment that my boss at the time, he asked me, hey, can you write a food for thought paper? That's how we call them. It's like when you don't know what to do, you write a food for thought paper. Can you write a food for thought paper on the implications of emerging and disruptive technologies on security? And I remember I was like, yeah, sure, because you have to stay curious, you have to be ambitious, you have to feel overwhelmed. Yeah. And I went back to my desk. Yeah, stay hungry. And I went back to my desk and was like, what is artificial intelligence?
Oh wow!
And then the whole process started. And now 4 or 5 years later, we're here in Bulgaria and can open our kind of our test center presence. I mean, not open. They obviously they're independent from us, but we can open a presence in Bulgaria that will give access to Bulgarian entrepreneurs to NATO, and that's honestly a crazy couple of years.
Fun thing, preparing myself for today's conversation, I was like going through some news websites, and they were like popped into the homepage news about the word of 2023. Do you know what the word of 2023 is? I think by Cambridge.
I have absolutely no clue.
It's hallucination.
Oh,
because of the large language models, they don't actually think, they hallucinate. This is like the way that sometimes they build concepts that are not fact-based, but they just like hallucinate them into life.
Okay.
And that's why artificial intelligence is generally, considered as hallucinating at the moment and not being absolutely fact-checked and really truthful, which is a very interesting perspective on what how large language models are working at the moment, which was a part of a conference that I attended to. It's called the All-in-One, the dev.bg. This is the largest IT community in Bulgaria that I was the host of the entire conference.
Super fun.
Standing on stage and inviting amazing, so smart people. You know, Bulgaria is very fond on its IT industry and companies that are building products, and we are switching into like service to product based economy in IT. And I've heard this hallucinating. I was like, this sounds about right. Yeah. Because if I ask something, the computer, like the AI, the ChatGPT, for example, it will go through not like a human based approach of digging into like reading different things. It's going to find ways that are words and meanings are linked together, and it's going to create something new that's basically not something that someone else had said. It will be something brand new, but like hallucinated, like
that nobody ever thought of.
Yep.
But it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So now it's the speed of technological jumps. 6 years ago, living in Hamburg, I was listening to Peter Diamandis from the X Prize Foundation, and he said something very interesting. He said, we have been doubling the information that we have, like since the beginning of time that we are storing information. We've been doubling it for like the the shortest period right now is like around 10 years. And I was thinking, okay, if like a couple of years ago we doubled the information that we had in just 10 years, sooner or later the information will be doubled in 1 year. Everything that we've gathered until today in 1 year is going to be doubled. And now we're going through this artificial intelligence phase. I can see it happening. Like maybe it will be a point in time that today we'll know, up until today we'll know something, and tomorrow we'll know like double the amount of information.
Absolutely.
So this is frighteningly quick, because it's like following the Moore's law, more or less.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, and you see it with
how do you catch up? Because NATO and organizations that are basically formed from people that are, let's say, like alliances that want to do something for the global good, they are following rules in order to avoid this selective humanity approach. And there are also like dark forces, like there's this Sith Lord somewhere. he doesn't care about rules. He can do whatever he wants, and it can go way quicker because way more flexible than.
Yeah. I think, I mean, kind of staying ahead of the curve is the name of the game. And I think there's a fascinating phenomenon, which is, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, like the technological change today is not driven by governments anymore. Yeah. So a couple of years ago, we had this a couple of decades ago, we kind of controlled what was being developed. Yeah. The internet, GPS, touchscreen, duct tape, and so on and so forth. All things that came out of the government domain and were then commercialized. Today, that's not the case anymore. So not only are we doubling, for example, our information availability, not only are we seeing the exponential growth of autonomous systems, of biotechnological solutions, and so on and so forth, but we're also seeing that the power is shifting. Yeah, and now we see that we now see, for example, it's the civilian private sector, startups, small medium enterprises, big technology companies that are really pushing the boundaries of what's possible today. And we also see that these actors play more and more of a role in the security and defense environment. Yeah, so I mean, you only have to look at Ukraine right now to see how important it is to get access to innovative and new solutions in order to stand your ground on the battlefield. And at the same time, and at the same time, it's really for us now from a government perspective, is a question. Okay, how do we embrace this change, and how do we capitalize on it, and how do we work with it, and how do we shape it? And I think that's a big question of our time at the moment.
So Diana is more about like these technologies and disruptances that are caused by these leaps, I must say. Tell me about how it all started, for you to join Diana, and why did you say yes, and what do you do, and like, can you give some context about good projects, interesting things that you did?
So it wasn't actually, I had never the choice whether to join Diana or not. So it was
how come?
No, because the unit that I was in, we conceptualized the idea for it.
Okay.
Yeah. So and then it was kind of like, okay, somebody's gonna.
It's entrepreneurship. You developed something and
you develop a concept note, and then you pitch that, and obviously, I mean, you work with people that are much brighter than we are, to push that and really kind of flesh all of this out. And we had an advisory group to Secretary General who helped us shape this, and so on and so forth. So it was a long process, really. And then in last year, we basically finalized the negotiation of the founding documents. So you have to imagine it's like a big room. There's 30 allies sitting around the table, and you all negotiate one document. And when you're all happy with it,
one representative per country.
Yeah. It's quite an interesting thing to see. I mean, a lot of I think this is one of the most. I love to be in the room when these negotiations are happening. I love when the negotiations are getting heated, because that's when you know that it means something to people. Yeah. So when people just they're just kind of winking through. They don't care, but if people fight for it, it means something to them. I love this. This is really good, and it's fun to then assist them to find the consensus. Yeah. And then it was, who's going to take this forward? And I kind of put my hand up. I was a bit the only one left who could do it, but at the same time, again, it was kind of in a ambition to feel overwhelmed, and I have felt overwhelmed over the last couple of months in building all of this up, and then I became the deputy to our boss who was brought in. And she was responsible for standing up this transition team of Diana, and now we have our managing director who joined us in May, and he made me, due to my previous experience, there the chief of staff. So that's really how I got into it. It wasn't really it was more kind of an environment that we shaped, and it was more by, okay, well, you gotta follow through on your promises, and you gotta support where you can to make this a success now.
So who can join the agency? Who can join Diana, and what kind of partners are you looking for? Because obviously there are like the NATO countries, but who can
Yeah.
join in?
But maybe before we do that, let me just maybe quickly talk a little bit about Diana and what it is that we do, because I think then
I think
then
it,
people
it
can
was
situate.
not clear in the beginning.
No, absolutely. I think, thanks for saying that. I felt the beginning we could have.
There's like technologies and
Yeah.
then the military and defense. So
Yeah.
how does it all
No,
come to
I
life?
fully understand. So, so first of all, Diana is not about developing weapon systems. Yeah, Diana is about leveraging what we call dual-use innovation. Yeah, so innovation that
Yeah.
has applicability both in the civilian domain and in the military domain.
Yeah.
An example of that is well, for example, the internet. Yeah, you can use it as an internal network amongst your forces, but you can also use it in the civilian environment. The challenge that we identified was that, well, there's this gap that I described earlier. Yeah, so between the civilian private sector that's pushing the boundaries of what's technologically feasible, and the defense and security environment on the other hand, which is kind of trying to play catch up, to be completely honest, and trying to integrate these solutions. And so what we realized is that, well, we looked at this gap and we looked at the reasons why this gap had emerged. Yeah, why were civilian innovators not really caring about security and defense anymore? And there were a couple of points that stood out. First of all, as an entrepreneur, it's very difficult to know what defense is actually interested in. Now, what is it that what are the technological challenges that you're actually facing? We not communicate about that openly for very good reasons. The second one is, if you then have an idea of what this could be, who do you speak to? Yeah, so I've a lot of friends in Belgium, and some of them are entrepreneurs. One of them was my closest friend, and he always tells me, well, it's cool that you work for NATO. It's this building there outside Brussels, but I have no clue what you're doing. And I honestly can't blame him.
If I tell you, I need to kill you. It's like in the movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I tell you, I need to kill you.
So that's the second thing. Like, who do you talk to actually? And then the last element is, and I have this with my new managing director. He helped build up a lot of different startups and entities over the last couple of years, and he always said the worst possible advice that I could give to a startup today is to go into defense. Because you have like 6-year procurement timelines, then you have like requirements that are hundreds and hundreds of pages long, and we got to move away from that. Yeah, and so really
because it's slow.
Yeah,
right?
it's slow.
The main thing is not because you started off. I just want to ask questions because
sure.
it's in English
Yeah.
and we need to understand it better. So the problem with defense is centralized, which means that you apply to do something for someone that takes a very long period to develop and then to implement.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, for these 6 years, the technological jumps have been so quick that it's
you're
like
outdated.
you're totally outdated.
Yeah.
It's like building a Formula One car now for after 6 years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I will add to that, and that is
and because this is happening just to make it clear, because the defense industries want to make sure that this is safe to implement, because it might be having loopholes into like attacking it in a way and so on and so on. And in the meantime, the open market, the free market of the economy is just looking for the best ways to save time, speed up process, etc., etc., etc. And this is like the rotation of cash and the solution of like problems make these technological jumps go quicker and quicker and quicker.
I think that's the overall challenge that we're faced with. I would add to that and also say, like the ones pushing what's possible technologically are startups.
Yeah.
And
quite obviously.
Yeah. And if I'm a startup, if I'm a founder, and I have an investment of $1 million or euros, whatever.
More or less identical value
absolutely,
at the moment.
It's fine at the moment. Huh? What am I going to spend this on? I'm going to spend this on salaries. I'm going to spend this on developing my technology, my product, and make it better, make it a better product. And I should just kind of outline that what we're looking at is deep tech. So deep tech is hard tech. We're not looking at somebody developing the next Shopify, even though this is probably a very complicated process too, but we're really looking at people pushing the boundaries on what's possible in biotechnologies, quantum technologies, autonomous systems, and so on and so forth. So this means that these people, they're confronted with a question of how long can I fund my company until I need my first customer, and how long can I pay salaries until I get money in. And if you look at the procurement cycles of defense, well, in 6 years you're bankrupt. There's no startup that can survive 6 years on no customers. So that means that if we want these companies to engage with defense and security, we need to give them the opportunity to grow commercially in the civilian world. Yeah, they need to generate revenue there in order to survive even these procurement cycles, because I'm not going to be the dreamer here that's going to sit on your podcast and tell you we're going to change military defense procurement. It's not going to happen that quickly. And so Diana is really about bridging this gap and helping entrepreneurs bridge this gap and develop their civilian applications, their civilian products, while at the same time keeping defense and security in mind. And so this means that what we're doing with Diana is that we put out what we call challenge calls. So we put out questions and say, hey, can you find us a solution on how we can better understand what's happening underwater in coastal zones? Why are we asking those questions? Because there are 3 markets for them. The first one is obviously defense and security, with a defense innovation accelerator. So for ships, they want to know what's going on underneath them. The second market is, for example, big energy companies. Have you seen these massive wind parks in the middle of the sea? They need to be protected. They're critical infrastructure. And the last one is scientists, because they want to, for example, understand what the impact of climate change is on our coastal zones. So there is a real market here. And that means that if you apply as an entrepreneur to one of our challenges that we're launching, you're not only responding to a market signal, so to a need expressed by 31 NATO allies, you're also actually responding to a challenge that opens you to a market in the civilian and in the defense world across 31 allies. So we're trying to kind of give you exposure as a company.
So if I just make sure I understood correctly, Diana is in a way accelerator, but skipping the hard part. And the hard part is creating an idea that can change the world. Actually making a call basically means this is the issue that we have. Help us find it. Help us find a solution for it.
But then we're going to help you develop it. So that comes afterwards. And that's why I'm here, for example, in Bulgaria today. So what we then put at the disposal of these companies is grant funding. So they're going to get money. First of all, for their development, so they can technologically develop their solutions.
So they are like, how many applicants there are for a solution?
So we had now, for 3 questions, we had 1,300 applicants. So it was a lot.
Do you fund everyone, or you just shortlist the best ones that can?
40 to 50 will make it at the end.
Okay, that means that 1 out of every 30.
We have a lower acceptance rate than Harvard at the moment, which is also, it's a badge of honor for those companies that make it. So it's really like, you've been selected, you've been through this process, you get now access to a very exclusive club if you want. We want to make it less exclusive over the next years, but these companies will get access to an accelerator program. So a mini MBA for those who don't know accelerators for startups, where we teach them 2 things. I mean, mini MBA is maybe a bit,
MBA is
maybe the wrong
more
thing.
More about like lectures.
No. It's a very hands-on training program. Let's put it that way. And we want these companies during these training programs to get all the skills they need to succeed commercially. While getting an introduction to defense and security. And again, I just want to stress this point because I'm very excited about this, because it makes Diana very different from traditional programs that we have in this domain, is that for us, commercial success is success. For us, it is success if these companies decide to do nothing with defense. They go off and just become a unicorn. So that's a success, because what we believe is that in order for NATO to tap, or for allies to tap into the innovative genius across the alliance, we need to create an innovation ecosystem that flourishes, that's resilient, that's well funded. So this accelerator program is really at the heart of our effort. We don't take IP, so intellectual property. We don't take equity. We don't have any right of usage. We don't have any right of refusal. This means that these companies come into the accelerator.
You're totally supportive.
It's
only thing that you do is like filter.
We only filter. We only provide a spotlight on these companies. Then they also get access to test centers. That's what I'm here for in Bulgaria today. So the Gate Institute and also the Bulgarian Defense Institute have both been provided as centers where companies will be able to go and test, verify, validate their developments. So we see that they work.
Yeah.
And then obviously we want to use the Diana brand, the NATO brand, to attract additional sources of financing. We have, for example, a NATO Innovation Fund, a venture fund of 1 billion euros that we want to use to then, shine the spotlight on those technological developments that are so deep tech, that are so complex, that are so risky, that as a private investor, you don't want to put your money in there.
Yeah.
Because you don't understand them scientifically, but it's also financially too big of a risk. But if you have a big organization like NATO putting money into that, you also send a clear signal to the ecosystem
that this is important.
There are 31 allies who really think that this is, first of all, important, and second, that there's a real market for this. And I think, and that's what's
wow.
And that's what excites me with Diana, because we're really bringing defense and security to this to everywhere, really.
There's only one thing that comes to mind that you haven't mentioned, but actually it's part of the entire picture, is like, how do you develop such innovators, like people that are very smart in research to create such innovations that work, and you need education. And
totally.
I have have you heard about Endurosat?
No.
Yeah, there is a Bulgarian company that is creating nano satellites.
Okay.
And it's amazing. It's just like the founder's dream as a kid was to build spaceships, and now they sent cubical satellites, nano satellites into space just to democratize space access.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic because it was built by people that he trained in the Space Challenges program. Like, they are treating 30 kids from last year were 11 countries to come to Bulgaria for 1 month, work hands-on on creating moon rover, ground station, and software that runs on the satellite and sends the data, sends the results to the Earth, not the data to be worked on, and then in a couple of hours when the satellite is back in above you can download it again. So he put the education before the implementation, and now the company is very successful. They just recently launched with the Transporter 9 mission on Saturday with the SpaceX, another 5 satellites.
Cool.
From Bulgaria.
That's fantastic.
Huge.
I love it. That's good. But that's exactly the kind of that's what we want to work with. And because you mentioned talent and education, it's important for, as I mentioned, my best friend, so he's like, okay, NATO, it's cool, but like, what the heck are you doing out there? Like, there's these military guards around you, and we have to get out of there. We have to become accessible. And so that means that, for example, the office, our headquarter of Diana is on the campus of Imperial College London.
Right.
On the campus. Yeah. So we have a completely see-through office in the campus. The Gate Institute is on the campus of Sophia University. We want to be where the people that we want to engage with study. We want them to give them a path to engage with us on shaping the security environment of tomorrow. And I think that's so exciting about Diana, because it's really giving people, disruptors, the opportunity to put their disruptive kind of geniuses at the disposal of the security and defense environment. If you don't mind, I would just like to make one point that's paramount to the philosophy behind Diana, and really the thing that fascinates me the most. And that's something that I'm very selfishly stealing from our managing director now. But what is our purpose as Diana? What is it that we are trying to achieve? And what is it? What should be our larger purpose in defense and security? And if you look at conflict as the multiplication of likelihood and impact, then we're an awfully lot focused on the impact at the moment. So we develop weapon systems. We try to increase the impact of our weapon systems. We try to be more quicker, faster, stronger, and so on and so forth. But we don't focus on the likelihood a lot of conflict. And the likelihood, I mean, if you really look at kind of traditional conflict, as a subset of all the insecurities that are around us. Yeah, so we have. I mean, a driver of insecurity is climate change. Another one is food insecurity, energy security. We have economic discrepancies. All of these are drivers of insecurity, and really, traditional war and conflict is really just a subset of all of these elements. Yeah? I mean, of course, we'll always have nefarious actors that will attack other nation states, drive war and conflict. But at the same time, we have to recognize that there are this multitude of factors around us that are driving insecurities for people around us. And I mean, we've discussed the impact of climate change, for example, on migration. We've discussed the impact of, well, where you live and where you grow up, on where you go in your life and what the opportunities are for you there. These are all drivers of insecurities. And so what is our mission as in leveraging these technologies? It shouldn't be just on the impact. It should be on the likelihood of this impact, because the impact only comes into question once you failed on the likelihood. So our mission actually should be to leverage these technologies for the greater societal good, and to use these technologies to the best extent possible to eliminate all drivers of insecurity. So if, for example, we could find a technological solution to address, for example, food insecurity, that would eliminate a driver for instability, for security, that well, it's a massive driver of conflict as well.
Yeah.
Sorry if this
No.
clear,
I'm just going to ask a couple of questions just to make sure we understand each other, and we can understand me and the audience a bit better. So, one thing that comes to mind is developing sources of protein that are, for example, insect sources of protein for feeding animals.
Yeah.
Because it's very expensive to feed human with insect-based protein. It's so expensive. For example, this power of what was it? This cricket flour is so expensive. So people are like so scared of being fed with something that they don't like and culturally they don't eat. But actually, this growth in technology allows companies to think outside the box.
Absolutely.
What can we do to create food from nothing that actually feeds?
And I think here you're already getting into it. Yeah. So because, well, if we were able to create something like this, we would be equally able to provide this food to starving populations, but we would also, in the military domain, be able to, for example, provide food to very isolated military camps. Yeah. Another example is I was in Portugal a couple of months ago, and they're really struggling with dehydration. Yeah. So people spend too much time in the heat, and dehydration is a terrible thing. It just happens. And then you have to treat it. But it's very difficult to detect that you are dehydrated. And obviously for people living in these extreme heat environments, dehydration is a massive issue. Yeah. But at the same time, when we look at militaries, for example, well, they're struggling with that because, well, you just have soldiers not surviving certain missions because it's just too hot, and they don't realize that they're dehydrated because they exert themselves physically and so on and so forth. So what if we could develop a cheap tool that allows us to give people a warning in a sufficient time in advance that they are dehydrated, that they are at risk of being dehydrated? That would mean that people in northern India in this crazy heat could find shelter, could drink, could take preventive measures against dehydration. That means that the soldiers in our operations could be protected against dehydration as well. This is a real issue. But it's not an issue that you would normally link to a security question, or to defense question. But if you think about it, if you make this if you might make this life better and better for a vast amount of people through the help of technology, you eliminate drivers of insecurity. And actually, we should just look at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I mean, like, okay, yeah, guys. I mean, if you look at all these goals, and if you then just say, okay, all of these goals have been fulfilled, we live in a perfect world. We should actually have eliminated the drivers of insecurity. Of course, there will always be a lunatic out there who will not think that way, but it's a question of making the world making the world better and making life for people on the planet better.
Interestingly enough, while we were saying dehydration, I couldn't think about anything else but the Fremen and on Dune. Do you know that they protect their water? It's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And they had all these suits and a little
drop of sweat
that goes through the entire costume and comes back as water.
Yeah.
And the most important thing on the entire planet, apart from the spice, is water.
Yeah, it's life.
I love sci-fi. Sometimes it just gives interesting perspective.
Yeah, and there's always a little bit of truth to it.
Yeah, that and it might be a very good moment just to ask you on some things that I usually go through with my guests, like books that change your life for the better.
Oh wow!
Would you
changed my life?
Yeah, some things that brought to you like ideas, concepts, solutions, just thoughts that were
for sure.
helpful.
I love reading.
Yeah,
I always have a book with me. Everywhere I go, I have a book.
Where is it?
Now I didn't have a bag with me, but I always I travel. I always have a book with me. I wouldn't recommend you the book that I'm currently reading, but
just say the ones that change your life.
So I think change my life is maybe a big step, but I think a couple of books that really shaped the way I was thinking about things. One is The Invention of Nature. I think the name of the author was Andrea Wolf, if I'm not mistaken. It's basically about a German scientist, Humboldt, who was just obsessed with understanding how nature works. And I thought that his the level of curiosity that he brought to the world and the devotion he had to understand the world was absolutely fascinating, and I really this one I really loved, because I think it was just really kind of a little bit, I mean, in his curiosity, definitely a role model. In other aspects, not so much, but in that, definitely. Another book that I thought, again, it didn't change my life, but I thought it was a really interesting read, was a book called Goliath. I forgot the author now, but it's basically a book about the future of how does the future of security environments look like? Yeah, and so for example, he explores private military contractors. What will their role be in the future, and how are we gonna be operating? But to be honest, the books that I love the most are fiction books that have a little bit of truth to themselves, or have a relationship.
The Martian.
No, like fiction books that are settled in reality, but they have a little bit of a surreal element to it. And I think one of the books that I really love the most is called Grey Bees by a Ukrainian author, Andrei Kokov, where he writes about a beekeeper. And this beekeeper lives in eastern Ukraine, in the occupied territories. But he doesn't really care about who shoots on him. He cares about his bees. And so, for example, he hears then one day that, bees should have a very nice life on Crimea. So maybe I should go to Crimea and go there with my bees to give them a nice life. And he doesn't realize that Crimea is actually an occupied territory. And what I loved about this book, and I think that's something that's kind of a good lesson for all of us that kind of think about conflict and think about security, is that conflict and security is something inherently personal. Yeah, everybody. So, and if we look at a conflict from the outside, and we see this now a lot with Ukraine, we see this now a lot with the war in Gaza. We should never forget that we're looking at it from the outside, and that there are people that are actually living in there. And there are people that have been personally affected to a degree that we could never realize, could never fathom. But at the same time, there are also people with very different priorities. And I think realizing that and reminding yourself of that, and that your rational solution to a conflict, wherever it might be, in the workplace, in the world, wherever, is maybe not always the best kind of it's not maybe always the best perspective, because really what counts is the personal involvement of people and their willingness to change things.
I always think about emotional involvedness, how people are emotionally involved. For example, like I was mentioning earlier about the there's this very funny perception by people that used to live under Soviet times that it was a very good place to live at in Bulgaria, not taking into account that people couldn't go to high school because the party didn't allow, people couldn't travel, they could only go to other Eastern Bloc countries and only with permission, etc., etc., etc. So, and this emotional involvement to the times when something was happening in a way that you couldn't understand the entire picture is now used by like all the like parties that are pro-Russian parties.
Yeah.
So very good recommendations. By the way, none of these books were recommended up until this moment on the podcast, and we have something called the register of the podcast, where all books are listed.
Fantastic.
And this special part of the podcast is sponsored by a company called Storepool Storage. They do a software for cloud distributed storage in a very safe way here from Bulgaria, and their founder Boyan Ivanov, he visited the podcast in episode 298. It's only in Bulgarian, but there might be something that people are interested in cloud distributed storage. They're working worldwide. Let me just see where we go next. Yeah, are you listening to any podcast, something that you can recommend?
Not too many, to be honest. The one that I'm listening to very regularly is Exponential. I think it just changed names actually, by Azim Azar. I think he at least his previous podcast was with the Harvard Business Review. I don't know if he still is. I think there has been a little bit of a change, but this was one podcast that I really listened to religiously beforehand. But that's pretty much where I am. He explores kind of the impact of exponential technologies. I think a lot of the elements that we touched upon today are also come through in his podcast, because he looks at kind of technological solutions that are applicable to a wide variety of applications. I'm sure this one is on your list already, no?
Yeah, the
Exponential View.
Exponential View. No, I haven't.
No,
written down.
You have to check it. It's a really good podcast.
Yeah, the person that really inspires me about disturbing technologies is actually Peter Diamandis. You've probably heard of it. I'm asking, there's another partner company called Hacksoft. They have their own podcast, and they share how they built a service-based software company here in Bulgaria. And they are like very good friends of me. They do like conferences, trainings on Python programming here in Bulgaria, and I'm very happy that they're supporting my podcast too.
Perfect.
And if people are interested in starting their own IT company, like software development company, you can go and like subscribe to their podcast. It's called Hackcast. You can find it on YouTube and everywhere. It's on their Hacksoft YouTube channel as well. Next thing that I should not forget about asking is, of course, there's this Bulgarian and Balkan, I must say, hosting company called Super Hosting. They do hosting and domain, and they have very good customer service. Do the Diana agency have their own website where people can read more, they can apply, they can see your calls to like problems like you mentioned?
No, absolutely. I would invite all of you to check out diana.nato.int. That's really the website that you will see all the information there, where all of our programs are what we call unclassified or non-classified. That means they're just public. That means that also all the information that we put out there is public. So we share pretty much everything we can on that website. This is also the place where you will see calls for applications pop up. So you can apply on this website, and you can also any other kind of engagement you might have. If you're a big technology company, if you're an investor, if you are a mentor that would like to engage with the companies across Diana, then this is the place to go. And in addition to that, if you're too lazy as I am to check a website every other week, we also have a LinkedIn page that we update regularly. So check out the LinkedIn page of Diana as well, and just follow us there, and you will be able to get all the updates there.
I'll put it in the description below.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm asking because Superhosting are supporting me for probably 5 years now, and for the last year they've been more vocal about it, and with like paid support, so we can create a better studio, better tech, and get better quality of the podcast.
And you see it, huh? It's very nice.
Yeah. It's a very good progress for the last 7 years, I must say.
Fantastic. No, it looks really good.
The last partner that I must mention, of course, is also has this connection to Tel Aviv in Israel. It's a company called Yotpo. They bought a Bulgarian startup called SMS Bump. They do SMS marketing for e-commerce. You were talking about Shopify earlier, and SMS Bump is probably one of the very nice success stories related to Shopify stores, online stores. And Yotpo acquired them a few years ago, and they started supporting the podcast, and they have these office in Sofia that's developing one of the tools that they're using. So they usually have questions, but we were very quick to organize the conversation, so they don't have any. So I'm going.
Guys.
I'm going to make up a question on my own.
No worries.
Do you think that there is a way that like some kind of a e-commerce business or startup can be helpful to like Diana program, for example?
Well, I mean, with Diana, we're mostly looking at deep tech again. Yeah, like disruptive deep tech, and aiming to provide capital to environments where there is not so much capital. This doesn't mean that there is no application for them in the defense and security environment. Of course, I would have to look at their solution in a bit more detail to tell you in detail. But I mean, militaries are very large logistical organizations, a lot of movement. You need to get stuff to the right place at the right time as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible. So I'm sure there are synergies there, and synergies that are probably worth exploring, that are being probably already explored. So I think one element that the defense security environment is quite good at is kind of the adoption of commercial off-the-shelf solutions for really bespoke elements like this. I think there's a lot more advanced thinking than on fostering deep tech innovation as we're doing with Diana. But no, definitely. I hope that this is also one element that became clear through the organizations, that these lines between what is defense and what is civilian are increasingly blurry. And if we buy into this wider narrative of conflict being a subset of these global insecurity challenges, I think this becomes even more apparent that the lines between defense and the civilian world are just extremely blurred by now.
Yeah, thank you for answering my question. They usually have this opportunity to ask questions to my guests, and when people are interested in asking questions to my guests and knowing who is going to be on the podcast in advance, I usually encourage them to go to Yotpo's website and go to career section, see if there are any open positions in Sofia or somewhere around the world, and just join the company. This is an organization that's building software as a service. Here in Bulgaria, they have a research center. It's not something that's like outsourcing just programming. It's actually a research center for their product. Yep. And it's a great way to know that in Bulgaria we have very good and smart teams, and especially in the technological world. So thank you for supporting the podcast, Yotpo, and you've been doing this for 2.5 years now. So can't wait to have 2024 again, a very successful year of our collaboration. All right, these were the questions from my sponsors, the companies that really support what I do, and I'm going to turn back to like Diana's reach and scope. And how do you see the development of the program? Because now we have like calls for problems. You said, how many did you have already?
We had 3 calls with one so we had 3 calls now. We're probably gonna have up to 5 next year.
Okay, 5 in a year. That means every 2 or 3 months there is going to be a call for.
we don't know yet whether we're going to launch them all together or in branches. But no, there will be, but there's definitely going to be more activity on the Diana front next year.
Yeah, and it's open for. Can you just briefly explain what kind of entities can apply?
Yep.
Would they need to have already registered entity to apply, like company, and so on and so on?
No, sure. So everybody is free. So all companies registered within the alliance are free to apply.
Within the alliance, within all the 30 countries.
Absolutely, within all the 31 countries. You don't have to be a national from this country to apply. Your company just has to be registered in an allied country. So that's number one. Number two is you should be a startup or a small medium enterprise at TRL level 4, so technological readiness level 4, which basically means that you have something that you have tested and it works.
Okay.
But you're now looking at commercializing your technological development. So really, this is where Diana will provide most added value to you as an entrepreneur, is to really have Diana help you in scaling and commercializing your technological development. You don't have to have any experience working in defense. You don't have to have your first customer. You really, the earlier stage the better, because this is really when we can help support you in growing and becoming a successful company.
That's great. Yeah. And as we mentioned earlier, you can find it on the website of Diana and keep in touch. Tell me about your Bulgarian partners. You're here for the first time, and unfortunately, it's not the best weather. It's getting a bit colder.
It was sunny outside.
It was sunny, but I used to joke that this feels like the summer in Hamburg. But it's also the riots that are the protests against the Bulgarian football union that's dragging us down to like 82nd position in the world, which is Bulgarians have a very high pride on being third, fourth in the 1994 World Cup, and from that moment on we've been only going downwards.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, but we beat Germany in the quarterfinal, and then in Euro 1996 where we were going to the European Championship. We defeated Germany. We were in the same group for qualifying. You became European champions.
Here you go.
But we again beat you once, which was great, here in the National Stadium. And there's a specific pride in beating the 1990s world champion in 1994.
I can understand.
Yeah. So it's very funny that you're here today, but and being part of NATO and the Defense Alliance and these riots and so forth. This is not what usually is happening.
I can't protect you against those.
So, is there something apart from AI and something that's emerging in the technological world that people are not talking about, but it actually can have a very significant influence on defense,
on how we live? And I mean, it's the $1 million question, really. Like, what's the next big thing? And I think we got to be a bit careful here in how we phrase this, because I think the next disruption is somewhere around the corner. But if I knew what it was, then I wouldn't be sitting here, and I would also not work at NATO, but I would invest my money wisely. But I think the one thing I would say is that the name of the game is really combination of technologies. Yeah. So if we look, for example, at quantum sensors and biotechnologies, or big data analytics, as we see it here in Bulgaria with the Gate Institute. And the combination of those with bigger sensor networks or quantum technologies. So I think these are just we need to look at combinations of technologies.
You're basically describing art. Art is combining two different things or more that together makes 1 + 1.
But combination is always better than isolation. So I think that there's real opportunities here. I mean, I'm personally very intrigued by all the advances that will be possible in health, in human health and readiness through quantum and biotechnology. So detecting diseases earlier, and then also finding other ways of treating them. I think that's something that's going to really change the way we live.
We're digging into personal medicine, like personalization on your own DNA level, and then your
digital twinning. Yep. absolutely.
Which is something that I guess it's going to be in the next few years is going to develop into a positive trend, because right now we've been treating everyone through protocols that are suitable for some and not suitable for everyone.
Yep, absolutely.
Which is something that's very interesting to me to see. All right. Is there anything that you would like to use my audience to share, or what they can do to support you in a way, or keep up in what you're doing apart from following you on like social media and LinkedIn?
Well, I mean, I think I would say, I mean, we've talked enough about Diana now, and I think it's clear where to go for information, for to engage with all of us. I would say, from a personal note, I would just encourage everybody to stay curious, stay open-minded. Yeah, don't go always the easiest way. Go make your life complex, make it difficult. Because I mean, and difficult, I mean intellectually difficult.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. I mean, please don't make it an economic hardship. But this is what defines your life, and this is what makes you as a person an interesting and uninteresting person. Is whether you're curious, whether you're willing to learn, whether you're willing to engage with new things in and around you. And life is too short to live it in isolation. Life is too short to live it behind closed doors. So go out there, explore the world, explore the art of what is possible, and yeah, I hope our paths will cross, and then we can chat.
I was about to ask you what makes you better in life and successful, and you basically answered the question without me asking it. For me, knowing yourself, knowing thyself is very important, because you were very explicit about how different situations developed your hunger for opportunities and for making a positive mark in the world, which is great. And I hope that more and more people are going to ask themselves, what drives me, what really is important to me, what is my dream, if you wish, so I can do it every day, or try to do it every day, and this gives my life a meaning, which means that I live a fulfilling life. Surround yourself with identical type of people that know what they're doing, and they're just not like we said earlier, like wasting time, but investing time. And back on your investment of cash, if you knew what technology is going to be big next, you know what's the first rule of funding a startup, right? The 3 Fs. Do you know it?
No, tell me.
Who you get money from to fund your startup?
From
family, friends,
parents, and family. Yeah, so I was just saying, absolutely. Here
so
you go.
It's not a good idea to like put everything on your own startup.
No, that's true. That's true.
It's a risky business to put it all. That's why I like bootstrapping, but bootstrapping is also having its own cost, because you spend a lot of time on getting money and then doing something for free on the side, which is not allowing you to put your effort
all the efforts in there. Absolutely. Yeah.
But everyone has their own way towards success. That's great. It's been very, very nice having you here. I've been through most of my questions. I'm very happy that NATO as an organization is supporting startups, because I believe in these tools of education and entrepreneurship to be helping the betterment of mankind and Bulgarian society in what I'm staying here for and came back from Germany to do. And this is the superhuman is basically an atlas from Atlas Shrugged, a person that holds all the opportunities but also all the problems in their own hands, though they are responsible for it. So I'm very thankful to like Katya and the Gate Institute people and people that are supporting NATO here to have brought you and just pop this idea of having you on the podcast. And I can't wait to hear about a company that won the call and then went big from Bulgaria. And the last question would be, as an external to Bulgaria type of person, what do you think we should do as people, individuals, and society to make Bulgaria a better place?
It's a very tough question. If you've been here for 24 hours or even less.
But you've been into like geopolitical conflicts and
I think one
political scientist.
No, I think I mean I think first of all what I would say is, and I think this accounts for every society: listen to one another, respect one another, be a good person. It's not that hard. Be a good person. And on the kind of entrepreneurial side, what I would say, and kind of fostering also the Bulgarian innovation ecosystem is take risks, embrace risks, and embrace failure. Failure is, I mean, there's this very stupid saying, like, I think you only learn from failures or something like this. It's bullshit. You learn from success as much as you learn from failure. But but in order to build something that works, you sometimes have to take risks. But if you take the risk, just make sure that you have a clear vision of where you want to go. I think that's a key element, because if you have a vision of where you want to go, it's worth taking the risk. And if you fail, at least you know why you did. Don't go off, take stupid risks, take risks because you know that there's something behind there. So that would just be my overall recommendation, and kind of like on the entrepreneurial side of things.
Some people don't differentiate risk from recklessness, which
that's
courage and recklessness are different things.
Different things.
And also on you, because earlier today I had another conversation about taking risks, and the person said, we only learn from failures. We learn from failures because it's painful. And the pain makes us reflect on what we did and what we didn't do. And when we succeed, we rarely do reflections. I mean, reflections are important part of both victories and defeats. So if we reflect more on not like to be paralysis by analysis, overthinking things, but just be courageous, do deeds, and then if something fails, say, okay, why did it fail? How can I do it better? And if we win, like, what did I do better, and what can I improve further? Totally. So this reflection is very important. Moritz, it was such a pleasure having you on the podcast, and having your perspective on the career path of someone that's been bred into like different cultures and learn the best from both or all the worlds that you've been in to and touched base on. And very happy that to know you personally now, and wish that Diana and the partners here are going to find knowledgeable Bulgarians that are keen on making a positive impact in the world.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for having me and giving me the opportunity. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Здравейте, приятели! Благодаря ви, че бяхте с нас до края. С мен и Мориц Цимерман, Chief of Staff в проекта в агенцията Диана, част от НАТО. Надявам се, че този епизод ви е бил интересен. Ще се радвам да споделите, да коментирате какво мислите, какво сте си взели за вас самите. Това беше всичко от нас за този вторник. Знаете, всеки следващ вторник подкаста ще ви разказва истории, които вдъхновяват. Може да ни подкрепите, като споделите в социалните мрежи, или като отидете в сайта ни, в горен десен ъгъл има бутона подкрепини, където с малко месечно дарение или дарение еднократно от сърце може да направите това, което правим, още по-голямо, вие да станете част от нашата общност. Това беше всичко от нас за тази седмица. Ще се видим следващия вторник, когато Свръхчовекът с Георгина ще ви разказва още истории, които вдъхновяват. Чао, чао!